While crime writer Candice Fox was living in America for a year, she began writing to a serial killer on San Quentin's death row. After exchanging a few letters with one of the two men who became known as the Toolbox Killers, Candice was asked to visit Lawrence Bittaker in prison.
Bittaker, who died of natural causes this week, was sentenced in 1981 over the torture, rape and murder of 5 teenage girls in 1979. The prison visit for Candice Fox later inspired part of her most recent novel, Gone by Midnight, and award-winning crime author Candice Fox joins us now in the studio. Candice, thank you so much for coming in this morning.
Thanks for having me.
What did you first feel when you heard that this criminal who was on death row, that you had so many dealings with, died?
Just confusion, total confusion, because, you know, I had spent a couple of years writing to him and asking him everything I possibly could about his crimes and about himself. And then he's died and I just felt nothing, you know, and yeah, it was hard. It was so hard all that time to form an emotional connection with him because he was so cold and strange and psychopathic. Even over those 2 years, I just feel like I couldn't get into him emotionally. So when he died, I was confused.
What was the reason, before we look at how you sparked the friend, wasn't a friendship, a relationship, why did you continue a relationship with him over those 2 years?
I began by asking Lawrence, you know, my major question for him was, why did you do this? What led you into this life where you spent this time murdering these young girls? And I imagined that he would tell me, you know, how it made him feel and that he hated women and that it was a power thing for him, but he just refused to take responsibility for what he'd done. He had all of these excuses. Oh, I had a terrible childhood. I fell in with the wrong crowd. You know, no one ever taught me empathy. So for 2 years, I think I was just pummeling him with questions, trying to get him to admit, you know, what he had done and that he was responsible for it. His partner, Norris, I've seen some affidavits from him where he fully admits and says, I'm a monster, I'm a rapist, and this is why I do it. But Lawrence was much more of an enigma in that way.
That first meeting with him was inside a cage and it went for about 5 hours. Just tell us about that.
I didn't know either of those things were going to happen. I imagined it was 1 or 2 hours, you know, behind glass with a phone. You get a single A4 sheet of paper when you go to visit San Quentin, and it doesn't have a lot of information on it. So when the guards opened the door to the cage and he was in there uncuffed, and then they padlocked the door and walked away and left me with him, I just thought, this is where I die. This is how I die. He's going to kill me. And he is a lot bigger than he looks. He looks like a little old man in photos and in the documentary that I saw, but he was a lot bigger and stronger. And I was terrified. And I wrote to him in a letter later and I said, I was so scared when I got in the cage with you. And he said, oh, you shouldn't have been scared. I wouldn't have hurt you. I would have lost all of my privileges if I did that.
He also, though, had a sniper sitting from the roof above, did he not? That if he put one wrong step, he was shot dead.
Yes, that was, he said, yeah, there's a sniper on me at the moment. And, you know, if I hurt you, they'll just shoot me. And I thought, that's going to be interesting because we'll be, you know, in a furious tangle. I'll be fighting you off and he's going to have to get you and not me. So multiple levels of fear there.
Over the time where you had interactions with him, were there points of time when you felt conflicted about having a relationship with him and forming that relationship, how that formed?
Yeah, even, you know, when I wrote the very first letter and I wrote, Dear Lawrence, and I thought, oh, is that, you know, is that really what I mean? Do I mean Dear Lawrence? And then while we were sitting there, I left the cage. You know, I asked to go out to buy some stuff from the vending machine because I hadn't, you know, eaten enough. I was starving. And I sort of said to him, oh, do you want anything? And then I thought, does he deserve for me to buy him something from the vending machine? mean? You know,
because I imagine the victims' families are
Yeah.
always at the back of your mind
Yes.
throughout all your interactions, because
Yeah.
he was considered to be more brutal and more vicious than Manson.
Yeah, one of his prosecutors on that team was also working on the Manson case, and he said this was far worse. And I think that a lot of the reason that this didn't get much press is that the details of this crime are just so horrific, you know. And yeah, so all the way through there were these conflicting moments where I thought, does he deserve a bag of chips from the vending machine? Does he deserve me to write to him or speak to him at all? Does he deserve, you know, up until now I haven't ever named him in public because I think he doesn't need that notoriety over what he has done. So yeah, the whole experience has been very confusing, but also it's taught me heaps as a crime writer, a writer of fiction, about what evil really looks like in a person.
I was going to say, is your interest in this case in particular, but in other criminal cases, sparked by a desire to be a better writer and to write accurately? What sparks your interest?
It's, you know, I went to meet him and I expected a Hannibal Lecter type character, you know, whereas I met someone who so coldly and rationally talked about his crimes, you know, and he would minimalize them. He said to me, you know, for 30 plus years in my life, I was a great person, lots of friends, never hurt anyone. And yes, I killed all these women. And then for 30 plus years, you know, same thing, great person, lots of friends, haven't hurt anyone. So really, if you look at the span of my life, I haven't been that bad of a person. And you think, wow, like that is even more terrifying than your Hannibal Lecter type of person, because he says it so warmly. And you think, you know, if I met this person at a bus stop or something and I didn't know what he was capable of, he's so warm and friendly and normal looking. That's even more scary to me, I think, than the Hannibal Lecter.
So how has this relationship and research from this informed how you write, and in particular your upcoming book?
Yes, well, I'm currently working on my 14th novel, and so I spent, you know, I was working on my 12th when I met him, so I spent all of this time writing about killers without actually having met one. And the scariest things about Lawrence were like the little subtleties, and that's why I try to work into my fiction now. He was talking about one of his victims, and he numbered them, and he said, oh, number 5, whatever her name was, and just like the flick of the hand, like that, like whatever her name was, you know, just the power of those tiny little moments. That's what I'm working into my fiction now. It's totally adjusted for me how to use fear and intimidation in a killer character.
Manipulation.
Yeah, exactly.